Greetings everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. Owlcat recently provided some content creators a preview build of what Rogue Trader will look like at launch. This updated version contains fully fleshed out Psyker mechanics. I know many of you are interested in seeing how these powers have been implemented into the game, so this video will walk through all of the initial options. I plan to continue doing Rogue Trader content throughout the month, so please let me know down in the comments if there are any other videos you want to see. If I use terms during this video you don't understand, there is a link in the description to my new player guide that walks through many of the mechanics. Let me make it clear that this video won't walk through literally all of the different Psyker powers, and that's because you have to get deep into the game to see the entire list. Frankly, it may not even be possible to see them all since I don't have access to the last two acts of the game. Instead, for each category, I'll walk through the options available to you at character creation and what you can get up to Psy rating 2. I will circle back after launch when I have access to all the Psyker abilities to provide you the full mechanics. Before we jump into those details, let me remind everyone that here at Slandered Gaming, we focus on RPGs and more specifically CRPGs. You can find builds, guides, and live streams for games like Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, Baldur's Gate 3, and Pillars of Eternity. If that kind of content interests you, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss any future content. Alright, so let's walk through what Psyker options are unlocked during character creation. Your Rogue Trader is only allowed to be a sanctioned Psyker, and you'll automatically get a feature of the same name, which reduces your chance of triggering a psychic phenomena by 20%. Phenomena can cause a host of small negative effects to your team, including reducing momentum, so it's nice to avoid them if you can. You also automatically get Psy rating 0, which means you have access to bottom of the barrel Psyker abilities. Unsanctioned Psykers automatically get a +1 bonus to Psy rating instead of the 20% reduction in psychic phenomena. There are also quite a few staves in the game which provide access to Psyker abilities you cannot get from leveling up, such as Chain Lightning, and only unsanctioned Psykers can use this equipment. Adhere to Last is an unsanctioned Psyker party member. Heinrichs is a sanctioned Psyker party member. Choosing to be a Psyker is completely separate from selecting your archetype, so you can use whatever class you like. Keep in mind that the talents and powers we go over here have to be selected at the same time. You could instead choose a talent or ability related to your archetype. Therefore, you are always choosing whether to advance in your class or instead focus on your Psyker capabilities. Damage-oriented Psyker powers count as weapon attacks, so they share the same limit of attacks per round, and any abilities or talents that increase the damage or number of your weapon attacks will also increase the damage of your Psyker abilities. Sanctioned Psykers get a list of talents to choose from while leveling up. Each Psy rating will unlock additional powers and categories you have selected, and they will make your damage-focused abilities more powerful. These options require you to reach a specific character level before they can be selected. The other talents can be chosen at any time. Stabilizing Factor is triggered the first time you use a psychic power every turn and reduces the effect on Veil Degradation by 2 points less. If this reduces the effect to 0, then your overall Veil Degradation is reduced by 1. This is fantastic to have regardless of what kind of Psyker you are playing, because Veil Degradation is bad news if it gets over 15 and starts causing Perils of the Warp. Perils can have really terrible effects, up to and including summoning daemons onto the field. Having this talent also makes it easier to trigger some of the other talents we will review. Still Mind increases your Psyker's resolve by half their willpower bonus when Veil Degradation is 10 or lower. The more resolve you have, the faster you generate momentum, and the quicker you can use a heroic act that really turns the tide of battle. That being said, there are a ton of ways to generate more resolve and momentum, so personally I would skip this. Inscribed Soul is an ability that costs no action points, but it deals direct damage to you, equal to 25% of your maximum wounds. Your next psychic power used after this will not trigger psychic phenomena or Perils of the Warp, and it will not damage the Veil. No, we have better ways to do the same thing, so skip this. Sacred Rituals give psychic powers a 25% chance to refund any action point cost when Veil Degradation is 10 or lower. Very easy to trigger this if you have stabilizing factor, and it could do worlds for your action economy, so I would get this. Blade of Light causes force weapon attacks to deal additional damage equal to your Psy rating, and you get a percentage increase to armor penetration equal to 5 times your Psy rating. If you are playing as a melee-oriented Psyker, this is absolutely a great option. Enforced Reality is triggered when you use a heroic act and lowers Veil degradation by the amount of your intelligence modifier. For the vast majority of the game, you'll be able to use a heroic act twice per fight if you even get a chance to do that. This doesn't trigger often enough to be worth it. Psychic Barrage is triggered when you use a damaging Psyker power from 6 cells away or more and adds damage equal to your ballistic skill modifier. Obviously, if you are heavily invested in ranged combat, this is a no-brainer. Second Sight applies to psychic powers that have a range of 2 cells or more and increases their range by your perception modifier. If you are playing as a ranged psyker, I would say this is also a no-brainer, as coming out of cover to get within range can be very dangerous. Even if you don't plan to invest in perception, picking this up will increase your range by 3 cells at minimum. Subtle Manipulation allows you to use damage psyker abilities in melee range without triggering an attack of opportunity. Absolutely a must-have for melee-oriented psykers. Finally, Obscure Threat is triggered when you are not in a target's line of sight or you are in cover and causes all resistance tests the target suffers to get a penalty equal to 4 times your Psy rating. If you are playing as a ranged character, then being in cover all the time will not be difficult, and many of your power's most devastating effects require the target to fail a save. This isn't an automatic pickup, it depends on what powers appeal to you the most, but is definitely worth considering. Alright, that's all the base Psyker mechanics, so now we can jump into the different categories. There are 5 sections of Psyker abilities, and all of them provide more powerful options as your level grows. The first option is Biomancy, which focuses on buffing and healing. This is an especially great option for melee-oriented Psykers like your party member Heinrichs, who comes with this category unlocked, although again, you can unlock other categories for him over time. The feature you get is Iron Arm, and it provides a bonus to strength and toughness equal to 10 plus 4 times your Psy rating until the end of combat. Definitely a fantastic pickup for your melee Psyker. Adrenaline Surge causes all of your Biomancy psychic powers to cost 1 less action point during the first turn of every encounter. The first couple of turns oftentimes decide the battle, and this is absolutely worth picking up. Biophysical Distortion causes all of your attacks to poison enemies, which damages them by 4 times your Psy rating every turn. Absolutely, this is fantastic to have, especially if you're using powers that hit multiple enemies. Sanguine Siphon triggers when you deal damage and gives you a +2 stack of this effect when hitting adjacent enemies or a +1 stack when damaging anyone else. If you suffer lethal damage, the stacks are removed to reduce the damage by 1 for each stack until all stacks are depleted or the damage is no longer lethal. I don't think this makes sense for a ranged Psyker, since you should be using cover and positioning to stay alive. For damage-oriented melee Psykers who cannot invest in tanking abilities, this can help you stay on your feet, and it's a great option. Confer Immunity is triggered when you are healed or you heal an ally. If the character is already at full wounds, they receive temporary wounds equal to the healing. This is great if you want your Biomancer to serve as a powerful medic, but I would argue that Pulse of Life is the more important option. Corpus Conversion is triggered when an enemy adjacent to an ally dies, and it causes that ally to get a stack of this effect. If you target this character with a psychic power, it will work as if your Psy rating is 2 points higher, and it will not damage the Veil or trigger nasty effects. Psy rating intensifies damaging powers that you wouldn't use on an ally, so honestly, I'm not certain what the appeal of this talent is supposed to be. Pulse of Life allows your healing psychic powers to critically hit, and the increase will be the same amount as your critical damage. Any effects that increase your critical hit chance also apply here, and you get a percentage bonus of 5 plus twice your willpower bonus. If you want this character to serve as a medic, this is a no-brainer. Strange Vitality triggers when you are under the effect of psychic powers and provides a +5 toughness bonus for each of those effects. This is great if you like stacking multiple psychic buffs, and obviously the toughness bonus will really help your melee Psyker. Finally, Twist Flesh triggers when a psychic effect increases the damage a target suffers, and this talent will increase the effect by half. So if you increase the damage by 20%, this talent will instead bump that up to 30%. This option could be a flat-out boss killer, and it's definitely one to consider if you use those types of abilities often. That's what you can see regarding Biomancy at character creation, so now let's review the powers that are available after Psy level 3. Again, you can get up to Psy level 5 in the full game, so the complete list at launch will be significantly larger. Enfeeble affects all creatures within a 10-cell radius and gives them a penalty to strength and agility equal to 5 plus 3 times your Psy rating, along with a percentage increase to damage taken equal to 3 plus twice your Psy rating. This debuff lasts until the end of combat, and no question, this is a fantastic way to set up multiple enemies for more damage, and I definitely recommend picking it up. Invigorate can be used on one friendly target and restores wounds in an amount equal to twice your Psy rating plus your willpower bonus. If this ability brings the target to full wounds, you can also remove a variety of negative effects. Again, I am not a fan of creating medics, but if that works for you, this is definitely a great option. Metabolic Overcharge applies to one friendly target and causes them to immediately gain an extra turn with twice the number of their normal movement points and your Psy rating as their action points. Unfortunately, this also causes the target to suffer 5% of their maximum wounds as damage at the end of each turn until the end of combat. Every action the target makes during the extra turn will also trigger the damage. Why would you pick this? Honestly, the answer escapes me, and I always skip it. Regeneration applies to one friendly target and lasts until the end of combat. Every turn, the target will recover wounds in an amount equal to your Psy rating and half of your willpower bonus, while also removing one negative status. Enemies absolutely love using stun grenades against you, so being able to remove that automatically every turn is a big deal, and this is definitely worth taking regardless of whether or not you plan to be a medic. Warp Speed lasts until the end of combat and provides one friendly character a bonus to movement points and agility equal to 3 plus your Psy rating, while also giving you one additional action point. Great buff you'll absolutely want to have. That's all I have for Biomancer, so let's move into Diviner, which focuses on buffing allies and debuffing enemies. Your party member adhered to last automatically comes with this category unlocked. The feature you get is Forewarning, which increases a character's dodge and parry by a percentage amount equal to 3 plus your perception bonus plus 3 times your Psy rating. This buff lasts until the end of combat. Needless to say, this is fantastic to throw on a tank or someone who has a lot of heat on them. You also get a list of talents to choose from. Edge of Fate is triggered at the beginning of every combat encounter and gives your entire party a 15% increased chance to critically hit. The first critical hit removes this effect, but personally I still say it's worth it and will pick this up. Fatebringer is triggered when an ally is affected by a psychic power and provides them a percentage increase to armor penetration equal to 5 plus twice your Psy rating. It should be very easy to trigger this, so if you have a party member using weapons with low armor penetration, this is something to consider. Flawless Pain is triggered on every 9th dodge and or parry by your party, and it gives you 2 additional action points on the next turn. Free action points is always fantastic, so I would take this. Predicted Downfall triggers on the first dodge attempt by each enemy and imposes a percentage penalty equal to 7 times your Psy rating. Absolutely you want to pick this up. It'll really help you mop up large mobs early in an encounter. Unnatural Luck is triggered when you use a psychic power on an ally that doesn't already have the effect, and it will automatically apply it on that character. This will demote any critical hit on that character to a normal hit, and then the effect will be removed. Nah, there are better ways to protect your allies. I would skip this. Alright, now let's get into the powers Diviner provides you after Psy level 3. Unfortunately, I can only provide you a couple of them because Foreboding is listed here again, and there's no other powers at this time in the beta, but I'm certain upon full launch, this will be a larger list. Perfect Timing is triggered when allies who are affected by a Psyker power attempt to parry or dodge an attack. The ally has a weapon which can reach the attacker and it costs 1 AP or less to use, then they will immediately counterattack and then this effect fades. This could be nice to use on a melee tank, but I don't like it because it costs 2 action points and disappears after being used once, so I skip it. Prescience gives one friendly target an increase to intelligence, perception, fellowship, and willpower equal to 4 plus twice your psi rating until the end of combat. Once you reach psi rating 3, this power will change your modifier for all those characteristics, making it a fantastic buff. That's all the information I have about Diviners, so let's move into Pyromancer. Obviously, this option is all about setting enemies on fire to devastating effect, and surprise, surprise, the feature you pick up is called Ignite. This will cause an enemy to suffer damage ranging from 1 plus 5 times your psi rating, all the way up to your willpower bonus plus 5 times your psi rating. This attack also has a percentage bonus to armor penetration equal to 5 times your psi rating, and if the attack succeeds, your opponent will gain the Warp Burn effect. Warp Burn is triggered at the end of your target's turn and deals damage equal to your willpower bonus plus twice your psi rating, with a percentage increase to armor penetration equal to 5 times your psi rating. Your enemy must pass an agility test with a penalty equal to 5 times your psi rating in order to get this to stop. Obviously, this is a great single target damage option, especially if you have a high willpower score. Pyromancer also comes with talents that you can select as you level up. Blazing Inferno increases your critical hit chance by 1% every time you deal damage by any means. This is a fantastic option for any Psyker, and you'll definitely want to pick it up. Backdraft triggers when you deal damage with a Psyker power and causes a random enemy within 2 cells to suffer half of the damage. The game loves throwing mobs of enemies at you, so 2 of them being close isn't rare at all, and this is another fantastic pickup. Body of Flames provides a percentage increase to armor equal to 8 times your psi rating against fire damage, and half of this amount applies to energy damage from other weapons. Obviously, this is a great defensive buff, but the other part of it is if you are a melee psyker, you might have to walk through areas you have bombarded, and that will deal fire damage to you. So whether or not this is worth it depends on your playstyle. It's also totally legit to play as someone who is constantly on fire and uses that to augment your pyromancer abilities, and if you want to play that way, obviously this is a great choice as well. Speaking of those types of options, Relentless Blaze is triggered when you are burning, and it increases your psi rating by 1 and your resolve by 2. Also, fire damage doesn't reduce your momentum. Obviously, this and Body of Flames go hand in hand and help you create a character who lives life on the edge. Keep in mind also that fire grenades are very plentiful, so it'll be easy to have allies throw them at you to trigger this. Burning Blood is triggered when you use a psychic power and causes all enemies adjacent to you to suffer damage equal to 4 times your psi rating. This effect is also triggered when you are burning, bleeding, or experience melee attacks. Another point for the Burning Man build. Warp Mines is triggered on every 6th use of a psychic power and gives all enemies a stacking -5 penalty to all characteristics until the end of combat. Early game, I would say you cannot use your powers fast enough for this to be worth it, but by mid game you'll be throwing that debuff on non-stop, and this will be a great option. Melting Like Wax triggers every time an enemy suffers damage from you and imposes a 3% penalty on your foe's armor. If the armor is already 0, you'll reduce their deflection instead. Early on, you can only attack once per turn, and this won't be worth it, but when you can stack those attacks higher, this is a fantastic debuff if you can pair it with other party member debuffs that are also reducing armor. Sparks of the Greater Flame provides a percentage increase to critical hit chance for all of your damage over time effects, equal to 5 plus 5 times your psi rating. This is increased by all bonuses to your critical hit chance. If you're going to use powers that set enemies on fire consistently, this is a no-brainer and a must-have talent. Let's dive into the powers you can get after Psy level 2. Firestorm affects all creatures that are suffering from burning or warp burning in a 12-cell radius and inflicts the Ignite power upon them. Throwing a fire grenade and then following up with this is a devastating combination. Orchestrate Flames prevents a character from passing a test to stop burning, and if the target is an ally, they only take half burning damage, and every melee attack they perform will inflict burning damage on their target. Do you love setting yourself on fire and swinging a sword? If so, have at it. Molten Beam deals double the damage of Ignite to all creatures along a 12-cell line and inflicts a percentage penalty on their armor equal to 10 plus twice your psi rating. If their armor falls to 0, then they gain the Warp Burn effect. This absolutely melts enemies if you can group them close together, and it's definitely a power you will want. Finally, Inflame causes all burning conditions to deal additional damage equal to twice your Psy rating, and all currently burning creatures suffer immediate damage. The damage is low compared to what you can get from other options, and personally I would skip this. That's all I have for Pyromancer, so let's get into Sanctic. This category is all about using the passion of your faith in the Emperor to buff allies and deal damage. I am not sure if your ability to use these powers is negatively impacted by going down the heretic path, but I assume it is not. Similar to Biomancer, I think this path is especially rewarding for melee Psykers. The feature you get is Word of the Emperor, which gives a bonus to resolve equal to your Psy rating for all allies within a 5-cell radius. Every additional stack of this effect increases the resolve bonus by 2. Again, the more resolve you have, the faster you build up momentum, so this is great stuff. There's also a list of talents you can choose from. Destined increases your Psyker armor by 5%, and every turn in combat outside of the first, this bonus will increase by another 5%. If you are a melee Psyker, there is no question you'll want to pick this up and throw on some heavy armor. Edge of Dawn causes enemies who are adjacent to the Psyker to experience 10% more damage. Once again, if you are fighting in melee distance, this is a no-brainer. Eternal Glory is triggered when momentum reaches 200 during your turn and causes you to gain +5 to all characteristics, +1 to resolve, +1 to deflection, and +1 to all damage that the Psyker deals until the end of combat. This is a nice buff early game, but long term it's rather small, so personally I skip this. Psalms of Heroes increases your Psy rating by 1 every time an ally uses a heroic act. By mid-game, you should be generating a ton of momentum and using heroic acts all the time, so this is definitely a great option. Sanctified Slayer provides a percentage increase to critical hit chance equal to your resolve. If you are easily able to stack resolve high, this is absolutely a fantastic option. Alright, now let's go over the powers you have access to at Psy level 2. Purge Soul deals direct damage that ranges from 1 plus your resolve up to 4 plus your resolve. The damage increases based upon the type of enemy you are facing, and it's increased by 50% if the enemy has already done damage to someone in your party. The power doesn't work against targets that lack souls. The damage on this power is unimpressive, and I would skip this option. Light of the Emperor causes all allies affected by Word of the Emperor to experience healing, ranging from 1 plus your Psy rating plus the allies resolve, up to 10 plus your Psy rating plus the allies resolve. If you are trying to create a medic, this is basically a mass heal, making it a fantastic option. Hammer of the Emperor also applies to allies affected by Word of the Emperor and increases the damage of their next attack by 5 times their Psy rating plus the allies resolve. Afterwards, the effect is removed. 1 action point for a flat damage increase, potentially across the entire party? Absolutely, you should pick this up. Shield of the Emperor causes all allies affected by Word of the Emperor to increase their deflection by half your Psy rating and their armor by 10 plus twice the allies resolve. Personally, I would skip this because the bonus only lasts for 1 turn and I'd want more to spend 2 action points, but the increase to armor is definitely significant. I cannot tell you what Sword of Faith does as it's currently bugged to show Word of the Emperor verbiage. That's all I have for Sanctic, so last on the list is Telepath. This category is all about debuffing enemies with some damage sprinkled in, and a Dare to Last comes with it unlocked. The feature you get is Psychic Shriek, which deals damage ranging from 1 plus your willpower bonus times your Psy rating, all the way up to 8 plus your willpower bonus times your Psy rating. Not quite as devastating as Ignite, but still solid damage. There are also several talents for you to choose from. Aftershock triggers when you deal mental damage and causes the target to suffer half that amount at the end of its next turn. This isn't very useful early game since the majority of enemies go down in 1 hit, but mid game when you face more elites, this will be great to have. Mental Breach causes enemies that have taken damage from you to suffer a -20 penalty to all resistance against you until the end of combat. If you use a lot of powers that test enemies' resistance, this is absolutely a no-brainer. Mind Siege causes enemies that have failed a willpower resistance test against you to suffer additional damage equal to 4 times your Psy rating anytime you hit them with a mental attack. This debuff lasts until the end of combat, and again, if you test enemies' willpower resistance often, I would absolutely recommend picking this up. Mind Thief triggers when an enemy becomes a target of your Psyker abilities for the first time and imposes a penalty of -5 to your foe's intelligence and perception while increasing your rating in those characteristics by 2. I don't think the debuff is significant enough for this to be worthwhile and would skip it. Pain Channeling triggers when you kill an enemy with a psychic power that deals more damage than the total wounds of the target. The excess damage is dealt to the closest enemy. There are a ton of trash mobs in the game, so you should be triggering this constantly, and absolutely I recommend picking it up. Visions of Doom causes enemies that are targets of your psychic powers to gain a stacking 5% penalty to dodge and parry until the end of combat. Fantastic debuff that will help your entire team, so definitely get this. Warp Minds is triggered after every 6 use of a psychic power and causes all enemies to get a stacking -5 penalty to all characteristics until the end of combat. We've covered a similar power before, and my advice is the same here. At first you cannot use enough powers for this to be useful, but by mid-game when you are throwing them out left and right, definitely go ahead and pick this up. Weak Hearts causes enemies who are afflicted with specific negative statuses to suffer 10% additional damage. If your party can impose those statuses on large groups of enemies consistently, then absolutely you should pick this up. Alright, now let's go through the additional powers you can receive after Psy rating 3. Dominate forces one enemy to pass a willpower resistance test with a penalty equal to 5 times your Psy rating. If they fail, then on their next turn, they will spend all movement points trying to move as close as possible to you. Once this movement is complete, they can act as normal, but they must succeed on another willpower test or the effect remains. This power can be used from up to 24 cells away, and it is fantastic for pulling out heavily entrenched priority targets. This game absolutely loves putting devastating snipers in very hard to reach places, and if you don't have a good long range option, Dominate will go a long way towards making those enemies more vulnerable. Psychic Assault causes all creatures in a 7-cell radius cone in front of you to suffer Psychic Shriek, and they will become stunned until your next turn unless they pass a willpower test. No question, this is fantastic and a must-have ability. Sensory Deprivation forces enemies to pass a willpower test, and failure causes them to become blinded and have a penalty on all characteristics equal to 5 times your Psy rating. Blinded creatures take a -30 penalty to ballistic skill, weapon skill, agility, and perception. I prefer debuffs that let you kill enemies easier, as opposed to focusing on how much damage they can do, so I skip this, but it's still a great option. Mind Bond causes an ally to make perception, intelligence, willpower, or fellowship tests using their stats or yours, whichever one is higher until the end of combat. Whether or not this power is useful depends on the makeup of your team, and if your Psyker stats are superior to another character who is getting a lot of attention. Finally, Mind Rupture forces a target to pass a willpower test, and failure results in them immediately attacking an ally. Afterwards, they'll experience Psychic Shriek damage, and their willpower is reduced by 10, plus twice your Psy rating until the end of combat. If they pass the test, then they only experience the damage and willpower reduction. I don't like this as your primary attack power, but once you can use more than one, it's definitely something you'll want to have in your rotation. That is all the information I have regarding Psyker mechanics at this time. I'll continue covering the game up through its release, so again, let me know down in the comments if there's any particular videos you want to see. Hope all of you enjoyed this video. Take care.